If you've ever met a defensive lineman,
on both sides of the ball, let's get it done.
Then you've met a guy who's crazed.
Regulators, mount up. We're coming.
Who is this guy? Where is he coming from? And how do we stop him?
You mine, baby.
And he was one of the nastiest human beings ever to walk this earth.
Showtime. I think a great pass rusher has to be able to get into attack mode and get into attack mode with reckless abandon. Attack, and you've got the talent. Now you've got a great pass rusher.
Hammer time.
They're tough and nasty, and they punished passers.
Thomas has it. Wrapped into the ground with a loss.
The top 10 pass rushers of all time.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
They played in different eras, some before 1982 when sacks became an official statistic, but all gave quarterbacks nightmares.
The number 10 pass rusher of all time, J.J. Watt.
J.J. Watt is incomparable. There's no one else even close to him in today's NFL. He is the best defensive player in the game. It's not even close.
All I know is you mess with me, you got problems. First down from the 20. Watt has a sack. And another big play by the big man from Wisconsin.
J.J. Watt is a force to be reckoned with. When he's on the field, you know that it's going to be tough for whatever quarterback he's facing.
He's just the complete package as a defensive lineman. He has great speed, he has great quickness, obviously great power. He brings everything to the table that you want a defensive end to have.
He's absolutely unblockable.
J.J. Watt transcends his scheme. He transcends his position. He's a dominant player. There's nobody like him.
But J.J. Watt's an example, too, of what you see when you see drive in a person, when you see a person who wants it so badly. To me, he screams desire on every play.
And another big play by the big man from Wisconsin.
I think J.J. Watt is, without a doubt, one of the best pass rushers in NFL history. I mean, he's powerful. He's, length. He's fast. He can play defensive end. He can play defensive tackle. And he still gets pressures, sacks. He's constantly in the quarterback's face.
He's always around the ball. He's always making a play. He's just that dude. So I really like him.
When I think of Watt, I think of two qualities. I think of explosiveness. And I think of relentlessness.
Quarterback getting smoked back there.
J.J. Watt is definitely one of the top 10 pass rushers of all time. If he retires tomorrow from when we shot this, I think he's a Hall of Famer.
I got one word for him, and one word only.
Still just even getting started with his career, and I'd put him right there behind Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor. He's already top 5 for me.
Woo! I think he has a chance to go down as one of the best players we've ever seen.
Woo! What a phenomenal physical specimen. Geez, I'm all for it. The more people that are doing woo, the better it makes me look.
Woo! Woo! Big dogs are in the house!
Pass rushers are giants, huge men that crush quarterbacks. Too big and too tall. But one man loomed largest of all.
The number 9 pass rusher of all time, Derek Thomas.
What made Derek a force was he had the same thing that LT had from the standpoint of that first step. They came off that corner, and it's the same thing. Relentless first step, time after time after time.
Derek Thomas flew around him to make the sack.
And that's really what made, I think, Derek Thomas such a great player. He had great God-given talent, but he also had the conditioning to go with it to make it like every single play, this same gun is coming after you.
Derek Thomas watching the quarterback.
Teams couldn't figure out exactly what to do with him.
That's a dangerous situation.
Do you put a big guy on him, or do you try to block him with a tight end and a fullback? And they learned quickly, you got to commit an offensive lineman to Derek Thomas or he'll blow up your quarterback, and he did for a lot of people.
Knock him on the ground and knock the ball loose.
Derek Thomas knocks the ball away, and Kansas City's got it.
Thomas was able to, through contortion of his body, still sack him, but yet keep a hand up to knock the ball down.
The ball knocked away by Thomas and recovered by Kansas City.
He just knew when to extend his arm and when to get it out. I don't think I've ever seen a player do it as well as he had.
You see what I'm talking about? Good. All right. Let's get on that quarterback's ass.
In 1990, our number 10 pass rusher set the NFL record with 7 sacks in one game.
Another sack for Derek Thomas.
What's new?
8 years later, Thomas was on his way to an even bigger game and could have easily shattered his own record.
1, 2, 3.
We were beating John Gruden's Raider team pretty good. I said, Marty, I'm going to pull off the dogs. I said, we'll kill them if we keep this up. And Derek, at that time in the third quarter, had 6 sacks.
It's a safety. Derek Thomas.
Derek, to his credit, never said a word after the game. He had 6 sacks, and he knew he could have got 10 that night.
The number 8 pass rusher of all time, flamboyant and buoyant, Mark Gastineau.
Number 8.
The dive itself was a 2, but as far as daring and skill, it was about a 10.
Oh, wow. Mark Gastineau. He had a motor. I mean, he really enjoyed the game and was really very effective.
Get up the field in a hurry. You just look at this guy. He was 6'6", 275 pounds.
I run a 4.5 which is very fast for somebody my size, which is about 280 pounds right now.
He liked pass rush. When you like it. So he pass rushed on every down. He was on his way.
I would read the quarterback's lips. I would be over trying to get the count. It's going to be on 1, it's going to be on 2. Trying to get every little extra thing that you could possibly get. That is the key, is getting out the ball.
Even faster than Gastineau was the speed in which he ran up sacks, 107.5 in 10 years. Faster still, his climb to fame.
I don't know if it was a pretty boy image or, his marriage to, I believe, Bridget Nielsen that made Mark Gastineau, but, all of a sudden he was hot. Perhaps it was the New York media.
Or perhaps it was because he played on the New York Sack Exchange beside All-Pro Joe Klecko.
For them both to have over 20 sacks in one season, I think Mark definitely needs to be in the top 10 of pass rushers, but I think Joe Klecko should be in the Hall of Fame.
Our number 8 pass rusher was on his way to Canton until he focused on dancing more than sacking. Jet fans loved it, but most thought that Gastineau was just a,
I thought Gastineau's sack dance was pitiful. His routines were rudimentary at best.
It's one thing to be excited, but to show off is different than excitement. I always felt that he tried to impress people with how good he was by all his celebrating and all that nonsense that went around it. To me, it was his own little show, and it was his own little circus.
If I'm playing across from a guy like Gastineau and he pulled that stuff, I'd punch him right in the mouth.
That's just what happened in 1983.
By Gastineau. Gastineau goes into his celebration. And something like this is bound to happen. Maybe a while before he celebrates again.
Jackie Slater came over and cold-cocked him from behind because Jackie Slater didn't want to be shown up.
Jackie Slater, I think, is the guy who starts it. Watch, here's the sack by Gastineau. Now watch Slater come over. He sees the dance. He starts and he pushes him from behind, and that starts the whole deal.
It was like a domino effect. I was going in there to defend Mark, and next thing you know, a fight broke out. I think people should know that we went in to defend Mark that day. We weren't fighting against Mark. We were fighting for him.
Gastineau's 22 sacks in 1984 set a record that stood for 17 years.
In a 3-year stretch, he's there with anybody. And then everything else is kind of pedestrian. So there was a mini Sandy Koufax in there.
He should have been on the steps of Canton, Ohio, but he let all these distractions bother his productivity on the field.
A great, talented pass-rushing athlete who was a bit of a jerk, and I think he paid the price for it. I thought Gastineau was judged fairly. Great talent, bad dude.
You think you can beat me? You think you can beat me?
Not all pass rushers are huge. Undersized John Randall had nearly 140 sacks.
I'm not 6'6", 6'7". I'm only 6'2".
Sorry about that, bro. You know, I'm short, man. I'm short. I got to put my hands up here.
I surprise most guys, because most guys underestimate my strength.
Same for the Colts sack master, Dwight Freeney, who was just 6'1". But the toughest little engine that could was Fred Dean. Dean weighed just 227 pounds, but he was a 4-time Pro Bowler.
You would look at Fred Dean and you thought, huh? Bank teller, accountant, pleasant sort of fellow, but then the ball snapped and he became Superman.
Dean played 6.5 seasons with the Chargers and once had a 6-sack game. In 1981, he headed up to the Bay Area and helped San Francisco win 2 Super Bowls. While Dean raised the young Niners to new heights, he rarely lifted a weight.
He's just a great, great player. He had kind of a short career, and he never worked at keeping himself in shape. He sat in the corner of the locker room all the time, puffing on one cigarette after another.
He says, well, I was thinking about lifting weights, but I thought I might lie here till I got over it.
Dean was hazardous to a QB's health, but even more so is the next man on our countdown.
The number 7 pass rusher of all time, Michael Strahan.
I got it. I got it. Got it. Got it. I got it. Got it. Bam!
In 2007, Michael Strahan got a Super Bowl ring.
He's sacked by Michael Strahan, and the New York Giants are the Super Bowl 42 champions.
Our number 7 sack master now has the hardware to solidify his place in Canton.
I think that he's had a Hall of Fame career and will go to the Hall of Fame.
Michael Strahan is probably, over the last 7 or 8 years, the best pass rusher in the National Football League. Strahan is brute force. Strahan does have tremendous quickness, but I've seen him manhandle some of the best offensive linemen. He's one of the strongest guys in the National Football League.
He was in my face every single snap.
Now gets sacked by Strahan.
Over and over and over again. Every time I played him, he was on top of me every single play.
Michael Strahan just abused John Runyon.
I tell you right now, you know everybody gonna watch this ass whoop I'm put on you, right?
John Runyon was an all-pro player. Michael Strahan's just killing this guy. It's like there's tire tracks on his back after every Eagles-Giants game. That John Runyon is like, what happened?
All day long. Your boy can't touch me. You know that. You can't touch me.
The 7-time Pro Bowler amassed over 140 sacks in his career, but his most memorable one came a bit too easily.
Hey, I told you I was coming. I told you.
He can't handle the truth.
It's always stuck in my craw that he was handed the sack record. Not enough was made of the fact that Brett Favre played God one day.
Working on your golf swing? I see you over here swinging.
And decided that what Strahan had done that year was more important than what Gastineau had done previously.
1st and 10 at the 42. And you know what? No one's happier than Brett Favre.
I mean, Brett Favre falls down. Give me a break.
There's Brett Favre right there coming out. I don't think he's had an easier sack than that one right there.
That is not the record. I am sorry.
Most sacks in a season, surpassing Mark Gastineau.
He wouldn't have gotten the sack if you would have had that, right in front of you.
Favre ran right into him. Almost looked like it was a design play.
I mean, Michael could have killed him. He could have hung him out the drive. I would have. Michael wouldn't do nothing like that. Michael got character.
He came up and said if there's ever any player that he would love to see do it, it would be me. And I said to him, I said, man, I saw you had a season where you had 20 sacks.
and then he had a season where he had 22. How in the world did you do that? And he looked at me and said, sure is hard, isn't it?
The number 6 pass rusher of all time, Kevin Greene.
It's a one-on-one matchup. You and the guy in front of you. One of two things are going to happen. Either you're going to fire off the ball and you're going to plant his butt in the turf, or he's coming off the ball and jacking you up and kicking your butt. You take care of your own job. You kick the guy's butt in front of you. Do your butt-kicking job.
That's a guy that's nobody really talk about. And you look around, you check the records, and you go, wow, this guy had some sacks.
160 of them to be exact, third all time. But why is Greene so overlooked? Because he didn't look like the prototype sackmaster, and he was a journeyman who played for 4 different teams.
When you got that guy that can run you over and run around you, it's a nightmare. That's what Kevin brought to the table.
A guy that brings his lunch bucket, and he was a student of the game, so get into the mind of the offensive lineman.
Man, you're a good athlete, man. You're a good athlete.
Me up and then try to beat me later.
No, man.
Kevin Greene had pass rushing down to a science.
Here's Hebert with the snap. There's Greene. He got it. The ball's loose.
He knew exactly what the other guy was going to do. He knew his limitations. He knew his strengths as well.
Hit him head up and tried to roll inside. Yeah. I don't know what happened then.
He played perfectly to all the circumstances out there.
Kevin will not be stopped tonight.
There ain't nothing like feeling a quarterback's body crumble, man, when you hit him in the throat. I mean, I come in and I just want to play. Yeah! And he's a nutcake. Got that crazy look. And he's a Fruit Loop.
Rock and roll. Yeah.
And he freaks out. And he loves to play.
He dives into the end zone.
I try not to cuss so much, so you don't have to beep it out all the time.
The LA Beach Bum, who, oh, by the way, is right there with Lawrence Taylor.
When it came to pure craziness, our number 6 all-time pass rusher may have been number 1.
I think that Kevin is a unique man.
Stevie Steeler, how you doing, man? You all right?
Yeah, good.
You looking ready to play?
I don't think he's crazy at all. If he's crazy, it's like a fox. But if you were going into a troubled situation, I think you'd want to take Kevin along with you. Yeah.
Fumbles the ball. I refuse to believe I'm going to let someone be more physical than me. I'm going to stick my face as hard as I can into that person in front of me. Hit people as hard as I humanly can hit them.
Kevin Greene, forgotten by some, but remembered by all quarterbacks.
And now, the number 5 pass rusher of all time, Colt Hall of Famer, Gino Marchetti.
If you talk to the old Colts about the player they loved the most, it was Gino. I mean, Gino was John Wayne.
And for the 9th year in a row, everybody's All-Pro, Gino Marchetti.
Here was a guy that's about 6'4", long black hair Italian guy, quiet, never said anything.
You've ever seen a caged lion at the zoo pacing back and forth? That's what I remember about Gino. And we opened the cage and let him out.
Marchetti hunted like a lion. He used speed and instincts in addition to his brute strength.
I have to say is in the top 5 players of all time, possibly at that position. I mean, he was that dominant. No question about it. He was one of the most dominant forces in the game.
Number 1 pass rusher was Gino Marchetti.
10-year veteran Gino the Giant Marchetti blasts Green Bay quarterback Bart Starr.
You couldn't block him. I don't know, weighed 235, 240, 245. That was a big defensive end back in those days. Unbelievable quickness, strength, and hands.
I was more like a Sugar Ray. Punch, go in, go out, and then bowl over a guy.
Gino the Giant unloads on quarterback Jim Nanowski for a safety and 2 points.
That's the guy I copied my style from. Marchetti, if you look at his hand motions, how he could take a man and move his upper body around, bow, stick you and pull you one way or the other. He make an inside or an outside move with it. Quick hands, quick feet. He's my idol.
No wonder Like Deacon, the number 5 pass rusher of all time was a tough guy who would do anything to win.
Look, Chuck, Jim Taylor wants the ball. I think Mr. Taylor changed his mind, wouldn't you?
Gino Marchetti was a great pass rusher, and he'll tell you this himself because he cheated. He lined up just a little bit offside, but not so far offside that the officials would call it on him. Doesn't take anything away from him. He was just pushing the rules as far as he could push them. But I mean, that was his stock and trade.
Gino was indeed a giant and was named to the Hall of Fame's all-time team for the first 50 years.
Everybody spoke here tonight about the thrills I'm giving them. But nobody's ever said the thrills that I've had on this football field for 13 years.
The number 4 pass rusher of all time, Bruce Smith.
There are opponents that are just on another level of fear and respect. Bruce Smith.
We're going to put the heat on him now.
Bruce Smith.
This movie is rated R.
When he played, he would do it at will.
Adult language and violence. Lots of it.
Montana drops back in the pocket. Bruce is after him, and the ball is intercepted after Bruce hit him.
Bruce Smith, flat out, was one of the great pass rushing defensive ends we've seen in the last 20 years of the NFL.
Bruce Smith is the NFL's number 1 all-time career sacker with 200.
We talk about how many Hall of Famers are on the field. I know one thing. There is definitely one in the Bills uniform. Number 78 is going to Canton.
Hammer time.
We got Bruce, man. Bad things, man. Bad things.
I used to love to watch him on film, as everybody did, because, you know, what are you going to do?
Bruce Smith made the hit. The Bills have the ball.
Not only what is he going to do, but what is the offense trying to do to stop him? And the fact that, you know, this is a part where you get into, yeah, he's a great rusher, but he actually did everything else too.
When you look at pass rushers, there generally are 2 kinds of guys. Either you have a speed guy or you have a power guy. Bruce Smith was one of those speed guys, the ability to bend that shoulder, dip around the corner, still stay on their feet and turn.
Had that lean. You know, he could run around the tackle and it looked like he was about 2 feet tall.
He is hit from behind by guess who? Bruce Smith.
He had a big, long stride. Bruce would get a lot of sacks by just grabbing the quarterback's leg. He's certainly up there. There's no question about that. But Reggie White, I believe, was better.
I would never forget this play. We played in Buffalo, and this is when Boomer was quarterbacking. I think it was Everett McGivern was playing against Bruce Smith. Before Everett got out of his stance, Bruce beat him off the line. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Second quarter. Bruce Smith, and he is shaken up.
Boomer, it was like, oh, Boomer dead. Is he dead? Oh, my God, he killed Boomer. Bruce Smith, I thought he killed him. I was like, wow. I know I sound bad laughing, but boy, you got crushed.
200 sacks makes a strong case for Smith to be number 1 on our countdown.
Hey, baby, are y'all convinced now?
Sorry, Bruce. You'll have to settle for number 4.
When you look at defensive players of the 80s, the first name that comes up is LT, and right behind him is Reggie White. I mean, Bruce Smith was a great player.
It's showtime!
And being the guy that helped them get the 4 consecutive Super Bowls, that's quite an accomplishment.
Rush the quarterback. You understand? Yeah. Rush the quarterback.
Greg Lloyd was a master at blitzing off the edge. So were Hall of Famer Bobby Bell, Pat Swilling, Andre Tippett, the Biscuit Cornelius Bennett, and Otis Wilson.
Lights-out linebacker Sean Merriman may be among the best blindside hitmen,
but there's no doubt who was the best ever.
The number 3 pass rusher of all time, Lawrence Taylor.
he dropping? Is he coming? You look and you're like, he's coming. And you're just like, man.
Relentless explosiveness.
Sacks, pain.
You talk about devastating? Huh.
You knew Lawrence Taylor was going to kill that quarterback at one point in the football game.
LT, way to go!
He hit like he weighed 300 pounds.
The only word I could use is he's just awesome. He was awesome.
There's been not a more disruptive force, I think, in the history of defensive football than Lawrence Taylor.
Finest defensive football player I think ever played the game.
We never saw anyone like LT, and I don't think we ever will again.
The reason why LT was as great as he was, no one had ever had that kind of speed on that size of a body before. Most physically gifted linebacker of all time, it's not even close, Lawrence Taylor.
I played baseball, I played basketball, but nothing gave you a thrill or sent chills up your body or excitement through your head like football because of the contact. The contact was always the most important thing to me.
But we're talking about pass rushers. I mean, we got to start with Taylor, right? Don't we have to start? I mean, come on. You know, I mean, a psychopath. I'm sending the psychopath. Give me a choice between a rational man and a psychopath that I'll take the psychopath any day.
Go out there like a bunch of crazed dogs. I mean, that's Lawrence Taylor to me.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazed dogs. Have some fun.
He was tough. He hated everybody. Tried to tear your head off when he got to you.
Quickness, strength, throwing guys to the ground.
Oh, Lawrence, the magician.
LT was manhandling you. I mean, he would just, you're in the way. He just picked you. I wouldn't want to get sacked by him, you know.
He would take him out physically and mentally.
Hey, Shula, you better hope I never get back in there. I will kick your...
Guys would go into a shell when they played against him. He was a tough, physical guy and backed up his talk with his play.
Son, I got to do better than this.
He changed the way the game was played on offense. They had to do something different.
You'd put the running back on him. Well, that wouldn't work. So then you move the fullback to running back position, put the bigger back on him. He couldn't block him. So then we'd put a tight end over on that side and rush and then go, to slow him down. Well, that didn't work. Then we started turning the tackle out and putting the running back up inside on the linebacker, and he'd beat the tackle. None of them worked real well.
Taylor is the greatest linebacker ever, but he's not our #1 pass rusher. The reason is not how tough he was, it's how he got many of his sacks.
When you talk about pass rushers, it's so unfair to compare how Lawrence Taylor got to the quarterback and as a pass rusher to a defensive lineman. I mean, Lawrence Taylor, sometimes he was never even touched because you just didn't know where he was coming from.
Taylor was allowed to stand up and rush against little guys, tailbacks. They had Lawrence Taylor matched up on the weakest pass blocker very often.
Taylor will always be #1 in terms of his spectacular playmaking talents, but because he was free to roam, LT comes in at #3 on the countdown.
Yeah, boys, anything I can do for you?
And I looked at him, and then it's flashing in my mind. Stonewall, Tombstone Jackson, Rich Jackson. Oh, my God.
Few remember Jackson, a great but little-known sacker who played in Denver. Coy Bacon toiled in obscurity for 4 teams, but had 2 5-sack games. Remember Jerry Philbin's 19 sacks back in 1968? But there's one man who makes even Tombstone Jackson seem famous.
Norm Wildman Willie. All right, I'll tell you everything I can know about him.
Norm Wildman Willie?
He was wild.
Don't really have much recollection of Norm Wildman Willie.
And he was a man.
Help me out on that one, will you?
That's all I got.
Who is Norm Wildman Willie?
Defensive end Norm Willie played for the Eagles from 1950 to 1957.
He was a sack master in his day. But in those days, they didn't keep those stats as they do today.
In 1952, Willie got more sacks in one game than some of the greats ever got in an entire year.
He had a particular game against the New York Giants in which it is recorded as being as many as 17 sacks in one game.
That's amazing. That's a whole season of sacks for somebody.
17 times. I want to see every one of those 17 sacks, and I want to see it against the same team on the same day with the same weather. I just don't believe it.
Willie remembers that wild day and still puts his money where his mouth is.
Rush the passer guy, it was $10. The coaches would look at the films and write down the money. And if I remember, I made $170 that day.
It's a shame that more people don't know that. Well, they didn't keep a sack stat in those days.
1984.
Yeah,
that's when it started.
Yeah. Actually, it was 1982. And 3 years later, the old Eagles staffer was on the field for the introduction of an unforgettable Philadelphia legend.
The number 2 pass rusher of all time, Reggie White.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
They didn't call him Minister of Defense for nothing. When he hit a quarterback, he on top of me, he had that little, and then he'd get up and say, "You all right?" He said, "All right, well, bless you then." He ain't gone back to the huddle. And he found a way to come bless you again.
It was just when the game plan started, it was going to be, well, let's just not let Reggie kill us on Sunday.
Reggie was the guy that everybody feared.
Let's get back to playing football like we started out the first 4 games, right?
For a snap from scrimmage and a pass play, Reggie would go by. It would be like a blink and he'd be gone. And then the next play, go, I got to get in front of him. He'd get in front of him, and Reggie would give him that throw, and he'd throw him over his shoulder.
He was just I hate to use the phrase animal, but he was an absolute animal.
You look at the great defensive ends. You start out with a Deacon Jones, a Doug Atkins. Reggie took it to the next level.
In terms of his physical strength, there was nothing the guy couldn't do. Probably could lift a truck by himself.
Reggie was a man among boys. Reggie was more like a dump truck with turbochargers on it. There was nothing you could do to stop what he was doing.
Reggie White was the complete package. The thing that probably stands up with Reggie White was his upper body strength. He would just take both hands, extend them, and then just look to see where the quarterback was and got rid of the offensive tackle.
He'd run around the guy. He'd fake outside to inside. He'd bull rush him and just push him back to the quarterback, where he just had that big monster arm where he just hit the tackle and just the guy would just go 2 or 3 yards outside. Reggie make the sack.
Reggie decided he was leaving Philadelphia, but it wasn't like the Eagles made a great effort to keep him here.
To be honest with you, it had gone out of me. I had no enthusiasm about wanting to be a Philadelphia Eagles again. And the Eagles pretty much said, hey, we don't want this guy no more.
Now going to Green Bay and saying that that's where the Lord put him, and it just happened to coincide with the team that offered him the most money, some people think was coincidental, others didn't.
He came out with this thing that God told him to go to Green Bay. And we would always go, but the real reason was the green in Green Bay.
I'm bringing the sack to the pack.
Reggie White on the sack.
Reggie did bring the sack to the pack, and his sack total soon passed 150.
I got to get 8.5 career. You got 151. All right.
His final tally was 198, a long list of frightened quarterbacks, including his own.
Oh, God.
I like it. This is cool.
I'm glad you do.
White didn't come to the Packers to build his numbers. He came to help build a champion. He did both with a Super Bowl record 3 sacks, including 2 back-to-back.
Drew straight back in the pocket. Here they come again. Reggie got him again. Back at the 15-yard line.
A great series by Reggie White.
After 12 superb seasons, White was finally a world champion.
I wanted to hold that up not only for, us having the opportunity to win it and me finally being on the team to win one, but to let them know, hey, you guys are the original champions and you deserve it just as much as we do.
And Reggie White is richly deserving of being number 2 on our list of the greatest pass rushers of all time.
And now, the number 1 rusher of all time, David Deacon Jones.
When you talk about great pass rushers, you have to think that he's got to be the one, Deacon Jones.
Derek Thomas and LT, all of them up there. But, you know, the baddest guy, you know, don't tell him, Deacon Jones.
As a rookie in 1961, Jones was bad, a raw and confused kid just out of South Carolina State.
When Deacon Jones came into the NFL, he was unknown, unheralded, unpolished, and overweight.
But as he once said, he could outrun daylight. Overnight, that speed matched with a fierce will to win turned young David into the deadly Deacon.
When you look at the film of that time and you see the jump that he gets off the snap and how fast he is getting to the corner, I mean, there really was no way to even slow Deacon Jones down, much less stop him.
The thing that separated Deacon from some of these other guys, I think he might have been the meanest man alive ever to play this game.
I wanted to put as much fear into his heart and as much pain on his back as I possibly could.
And his big old eyes were about this big. They looked like saucers. He looked me in the eye and he said, "That's right, son, and I'm getting ready to beat the stuffings out of you."
You got this 260 pounds up to 4.5, and you got an angle on him, he should go to the hospital. And that's exactly what I tried to do. With no remorse in my heart, I tried to put him in the hospital every time I tackle. So each time he came over there, I tried to tear his damn head off.
Deacon Jones really was the player who glamorized the pass rusher. He was the Secretary of Defense, and he had thousands of people in his cabinet.
And in his toolbox, he kept a devastating weapon.
Deacon Jones's head slap, the most awesome thing I've ever seen. Bam! Right up against the guy's head. Almost knocked him out every single time.
Deacon knew where to hit you, and he hit right in the ear hole, and the concussion from that hand slapping into that hole left their ears ringing.
The head slap was a quick blow upside your head. When somebody strikes you upside your head, you have a tendency to close your eyes, because when you open your eyes, I ain't gonna longer be there.
Our number one pass rusher of all time was a bully who never hesitated to use dirty tricks. Tripping was legal in his book. So was tearing someone's face off. Jones put his indelible stamp on every game and put the defensive end position on the map.
He was not only a great player, but he was a great spokesman for the position. Deacon is the guy who coined the phrase sack.
Sacking the cornerback is just like you devastate a city or you cream a multitude of people. I mean, it's just like you put all the offensive players in one bag and I just take a baseball bat and beat on the bag.
There was no category for them. No one was keeping track of them. But based on what I've seen and what I believe, I don't know if he averaged 20 sacks a year, but I feel quite certain that he had years where he had 20 plus.
Jones, however, kept track of them all by keeping notes in his playbooks.
I got my 1967-68 playbook, the 2 years that no lineman has ever had in this game. Okay, I had 26 sacks in 14 games and 6 in postseason. And in 1968, I had 24 sacks. I can't let that go. I will never let that go. And you tell Sable, he's seen them. You tell Steve Sable, he's seen them, and he knows how many I had.
You know, if Bruce Smith had 200, Deacon had 225, okay? In terms of numbers, the all-time sacker in the history of the game, and would still be today.
His last seasons were spent in Washington and in San Diego. When Jones realized he was no longer the best on the field, he retired in 1974.
I loved every minute of it, and I gave it everything I had. I gave my whole heart and soul to the game. I walked out like a man. I didn't wait until they had to carry me out. When I could not rule the roost, I walked. That's the only reason I walked. I came, I saw, and I did conquer.